President Trump has made more moves, signed more executive orders, and made more immediate changes in his first 15 days in office than most presidents do in their entire term. And depending on how these changes are received, we may see and are already seeing a great deal of lawsuits as a result.
This was a message about unity in its totality and, cooling down the political temperature, as he calls it. He mentioned January 6th and a number of other instances where he just said violence simply has no place in politics.
But Georgia and North Carolina are the ones that he's done really well in thus far. He's won 26 states. And then if we take a look at Vice President Kamala Harris, right now she's at 224 electoral college votes.
And then, of course, we're also still waiting on a vice presidential announcement, right?
Well, we've been waiting for that for some time, right? And I know that we thought that he may announce that yesterday. We're all eager to see who he's going to choose. I believe he's going to be bringing that pick up on Wednesday. We know Tim Scott, J.D. Vance, Marco Rubio are among the short list.
Probably a little chilly out there, Ashonti. Tell us a little bit more about what's coming up today.
It is very chilly. Do not let this wind fool you. It is not a Vidal Sassoon moment. It is freezing out here.
Is there any way we're going to see you up in one of those air balloons this morning?
You know what? It's really funny that you asked. I said in my first live shot earlier today, I guess I gave it away. I said, hey guys, I can't wait to go up in the hot air balloon. And 30 seconds after my live shot, my producer said, absolutely not. So I will not be going up in the hot air balloon today, guys. But guess what? If you're not here already, you still have the chance to go up in the hot air balloon. Skyway 10K, guys, as you can see, hundreds, maybe even thousands of people have showed up. Hey, guys! The energy is absolutely electrifying here, guys. And the best part of today, it's all about giving back. The death toll in the Israel-Hamas war has reached around 32,000, and the Palestinian Health Ministry reports that of that number, 30,000 are Palestinians. Anger and frustration over 6,000 miles away from the war on U.S. soil. And these protests, they're only growing louder, many of them showing a deep resent for how the Biden administration asked Congress to send Israel money to continue the war. Senator Bernie Sanders voting no on those efforts.
Look, I think everybody recognizes that Israel has a right to defend itself against a terrorist organization like Hamas. My concern right now is that what Netanyahu's right-wing extremist government is doing is not going to war against Hamas, but going to war against the Palestinian people in general.
President Biden and Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, they had a phone conversation this week, and that's after over a month of no communication. And while there's still no talks of a ceasefire, there's still no talks of releasing more hostages, Israel's Prime Minister did agree to send some military officials out to D.C. to kind of talk with President Biden about how they can move forward. Reporting from the nation's capital, I'm Ashonti Ford. Gender inequality has disproportionately impacted women for centuries, according to Harvard's Business Review, and a long line of testimonies, from the ongoing fight to receive fair wages to the latest efforts to protect women's reproductive health care options. Both presidential candidates now weighing in on what they plan to do to protect women if elected to be the 47th president of the United States.
You will no longer be thinking about abortion. So all they talk about abortion because we've done something that nobody else could have done. It is now where it always had to be, with the states and a vote of the people.
Abortion and the legislation that surrounds a woman's right to choose is front and center for both former President Donald Trump and Vice President Kamala Harris.
But we got to remind our friends, our neighbors, our co-workers, the stakes are so high. Because if he is elected again, I am certain he will sign a national abortion ban, which would outlaw abortion in every single state.
And while Trump has denied that he would sign an abortion ban, he's changed his position on abortion several times, according to timelines laid out by CNN and The Washington Post. Access to reproductive health options is also in question. In February of 2024, Alabama Supreme Court ruled that frozen embryos created during the IVF process are children under state law. Now, that could limit IVF access and care in the state and require doctors to pay more for malpractice insurance. This could in turn make the IVF process even more expensive for families.
I have always defended and supported IVF fertility. and so has the Republican Party, and we gave you and give you total support.
Trump has vowed to protect IVF treatments, posting to Truth Social that his administration would champion women's rights. Senate Democrats introduced a bill to provide nationwide access to IVF. It was panned by Republicans as a political stunt, and it lacked the votes needed to become law. Women's rights play a major role in this year's election process, and nonprofit organizations like the ACLU and several advocacy groups across the nation are encouraging women to use their power at the ballot box in November. Reporting from the nation's capital, I'm Ashonti Ford.
Ain't that bad? Because we are intertwined and we are braided into the history of America.
Al Everett, a longtime foreman, said American history books exclude Black and Latin cowboys from their pages, something first, second, and third generation cowboys don't take lightly.
We was the best, not some of the best. We was the best. We broke horses and trained the mules to ply. And we did all of this for the white man because he could not do it. And I'm saying this boldly.
Cowboys are some of our earliest heroes. The black and white screen showing a man on a horse eager to save the day. And while at least 1 in 4 cowboys were black in the early 1900s, Hollywood films whitewashed the image of what the everyday cowboy actually looked like.
They didn't know anything about handling cattle. We was raised up at it. Some of them perhaps had cattle, but they would hire us to do the work.
Now, history shows that when Africans were taken from their homes and shipped across the globe to become American slaves, they already had significant farming skills.
My grandparents was staying on the plantations prior to coming to Florida.
Everett said they used those farming skills to make a living, skills they passed down to his dad.
All my dad knew was farming. The man that my dad was sharecropping with owned the store. By my dad not being able to read and write, all the vegetables and stuff was bought right here.
Everett said most black farmers in the early 1900s didn't know how to read or write. So even though they were physically free, they were still limited. Everett said he watched his dad struggle to gain his independence.
There was no such a thing as equal rights. He was a slave, so to speak.
A study by the Department of Agriculture said that slavery was followed by 100 years of racial discrimination that limited black farmers from buying their own land.
In 1965, the government stepped in and made it possible for a farmer, a black man, to go and make a loan and get off on his own and farm on his own. And that's when my dad stopped sharecropping. Not only him, the rest of the black and poor whites.
Things started to change for black farmers. More opportunities arose for his dad, the son of a slave, which created a new wave of opportunities for black farmers like Everett, who was recently inducted into the Multicultural Cowboy Hall of Fame.
I burst out in tears. They had to hold me up.
The Western Heritage Museum in Fort Worth, Texas, awarded him and several other black farmers for their community work, skill, and years in the farming game.
What happened is when we hung the shingle up about being a museum, all kinds of stories and people saying, hey, did you know this person, that person? So the Hall of Fame tells the past, the present, and the future.
Jim Austin is the founder of the Western Heritage Museum.
So this picture is from 1911.
They dust off archives to pay respect to black cowboys, like U.S. Deputy Marshal Bass Reeves, whose story was used in Lone Ranger, a popular TV show back in the 50s. But the actor that played Reeves was a white man.
The Lone Ranger.
Black cowboys and what they contributed to the social and economic development of America was overshadowed. But nowadays,
there you go.
Rodeos like these in Fort Worth, with both men and women of every race, are very common all across America and a symbol of how far we've come.
Come on, baby.
And now seasoned cowboys like Everett telling me the sky's the limit for this generation of farmers.
I've been waiting a long time. I heard about the one day that the bottom was going to finally come to the top.
And black cowboys live on to tell the story.